Greetings, everyone. Pete Pardo here from Sea of Tranquility. Welcome to another episode of What's Hot with Sea of Tranquility. It's Wednesday, new review day here on the channel each and every week. Today we're going to take a look at the fifth studio album from this little band from Arkansas here in the US of A. It's their fifth studio album. Recorded at Fellowship Hall Sound and Idlewild Audio and Metropolis Music and Audio MQ headquarters and all those places for Nuclear Blast Records, produced by the band Mind Burns Alive by Pallbearer. Yeah, I always love these CDs that are like everything is black and you're like trying, you can barely make out the band name there, and then the title is there, but you can barely see it on the spine. And I mean, look at this. I get this is a kind of dark, depressing album, but who is going to be able to read this? This is just ridiculous. Make that white a little bit brighter, folks, because there ain't nobody reading anything in here. I'm staring at it, I'm like, yeah, I can't make out any of that. It's just ridiculous. Poor packaging on the part of the label, in my opinion. But hey, nobody asked me, right? Anyway, this is the fifth studio album from Pallbearer. If you're not familiar with Pallbearer, pretty much a U.S. kind of melancholy doom band. They've been around for a number of years now. This is their fifth studio album. The band comprised of, for this album, of course, band leader Brett Campbell on lead vocals, guitars, and some synths and things. Devin Holt on guitar, backing vocals. Joseph Rowland on bass guitar, some synths and backing vocals. And Mark Learley on drums and percussion. And you have some guest saxophone. That's right, on this album by Norman Williamson. You might be thinking, what in the world is saxophone doing on a Pallbearer album, basically a doom band? Well, this is a bit of a departure for this band, right? This is about 51 minutes of very melancholy, mellow, kind of angsty, gothic-y, grungy, sometimes pop doom. Does that make any sense at all? Probably not. I was talking to Jamie Laszlo about this album because he and I are both fans, and we did the Ranking the Album show of Pallbearer a year or so ago, and I know he bought this immediately when it came out, and he was like, I'm not sure a lot of people are going to like this because it's really mellow, especially the front half of it. I would say most of it's pretty damn mellow. Now, this band has explored with this kind of whole mournful, mellow, doomy thing before. But to get like almost a full album of it was a little bit of a shock to the system. Not that there isn't some heavy moments on here and, the typical fuzzy guitars that we've come to expect from the band, but that's kept to a minimum. And I think that the heavy stuff is used sparingly to just kind of drive home the emotional weight of this whole album, because this album feels, you get done listening to this, this is not a happy album. This is a sorrowful, mournful, I would almost say depressing collection of songs, but very well done for what it is, right? Where the Light Fades kicks it off, that, again, these kind of lilting chords and lack of just the big riffs or anything like that. The title track comes next. I like how in some of these songs, they start off pretty, just kind of like drifting along, and you're kind of like, all right, this is not what I've expected. But then they do this slow build thing, then all of a sudden you get like about halfway through the song, all of a sudden the big riffs come in, the fuzz comes in, drives home this kind of impact, and then drops away. Then you get this kind of lilting thing that takes you out. They do that a lot on this album. Might not be for everybody, right? Signals is a really cool song. Then you got one of two 10-minute plus tracks on here. Endless Place. Then there's Daybreak, and then With Disease is the final number, and that's also just under 11 minutes. They're both about 10 minutes and 30-some-odd seconds long. Both really good. Like I said, there is some good pulverizing riffage in a couple of these tracks, but it's never done from start to finish, ever. Most of these songs just kind of have this really mellow, floating, melancholy kind of vibe going through them. Vocals are really well done. I will say, it's weird as I'm listening to this record, and I'm not saying it sounds like it at all because I'm not really a fan, but part of this album to me sounds like what Nirvana might have sounded like, much more mature, much more refined, and kind of still maybe making music today. Again, it doesn't sound like Nirvana really, but there's a vibe that I get from this album that on the more kind of laid back, mournful, melancholy stuff that Nirvana did do. There's a similar vibe here. I know that's probably going to turn a lot of people off, maybe not. And again, if you're not a fan of Nirvana, I'm not a fan either, but this is good, right? I'm just saying there's a vibe here that kind of brought me back to like the early mid 90s, that whole scene where you had all these bands coming out with this kind of heavy music, but it was just really sorrowful and depressing and whatnot. That's the vibe I get all throughout this album. Now, hearing sax in music like this was also kind of like a shock to the system. But I like sax, so I don't mind. It's well played, but it's kind of weird. So that's how I find this album. I find it kind of weird, but I do like it. It's just, it's not the normal Pallbearer that I was expecting. It's not that just big, beefy, pulverizing type sound that they have, littered with emotion and melodies and whatnot. And there's a lot of emotion and melody here. But it's still a heavy album, but it's like I said earlier, it's like an emotionally heavy album. You feel like this pain and this angst outpouring through the band as they're playing and singing these songs. And it's a heavy, not an easy listen, but it's not heavy like riff heavy. Like there are riffs on here for sure, but there's more mellow kind of textured guitar stuff here and just atmospheric moments than anything else. Little bits of synths and keyboards and things here and there. So it's a very, very different listen. Very different listen for this band. And I think amongst their hardcore fans, there's probably going to be a love-hate thing going on here. I'm sure I can see some who like the heavier, earlier stuff are going to hear this and be like, oh my God, what is this? But I think that this album could potentially open people's eyes who have never listened to Pallbearer before. But it's not going to be an easy listen. This is not a happy album. This is just very kind of heavy, depressing music. Strange that they released this now as we're getting ready to go into the summer months, because this to me sounds like a October, November, December album. And I think, like for me, now that I've listened to this a bit and reviewing it here, and I'll put up a review on the webzine as well, I probably won't listen to this again till the fall, is my guess, because this is just not the style of music I can get into at this time of year. So strange. I think if I were them, I would have held off with this couple of months, but again, nobody asked me. So anyway, that's my review. I'm going to give this 3.5 out of 5 star. Your mileage may vary. I could certainly see some people rating it much higher, and others who might go even lower. So it all depends on what you prefer. But I think it's good. I think it's well done. Nice little kind of extension of what they've already done. But, it's really not 100% what I want to hear from them, but that doesn't really matter. So if you've heard it, let us know what you think down in the comments below. Otherwise, go check it out. I'll drop the link to their Bandcamp page. You can go give it a listen and visit us on the web at www.seaoftranquility.org. We're on Facebook. We're on YouTube all together all the damn time. Please subscribe if you haven't already and click on that notification bell so you get alerted of all of our content as it posts. And please do hit the like button before you leave. Also, down below, we got the links to our Ko-Fi page, our channel donations, our merch page, and our Cameo page. Thank you in advance for all your support there, everybody, and we'll see you soon here with more stuff. I am Pete Pardo. Thanks for watching. Stay tuned for more reviews here on this Wednesday. Till then, ta-ta. Bye-bye.